All right, shalom, and welcome to our new moon service. Um, for those of you who may be new to what a new moon is, a new moon is a new month. This is what Yahweh has given us to keep our time. In the beginning, Yahweh said um, the sun and the moon, that these things was for our days, months, years, and for our seasons. And when we deal with the various orbits that Yahweh has set forth, it controls all of our time. We have the rotation of the earth, either toward or away from the sun, that gives us our day. We have the uh, moon that orbits around the earth, that gives us our month. And then we have the earth and its orbiting moon going all the way around, orbiting the sun, and that gives us our year. So everything that Yahweh said in the beginning, even before man understood all of those things, we find that those things are still accurate to this day. Um, we're going to begin tonight's new moon service in Luke chapter 23. And I'm starting. Normally, I don't get a horse until like about the hour in. But me and Brother Kish and Elder Barak, who's sleeping right now, who should be here right now, but he took a napping nap and now just trying to figure out like where he at. But we went to South Carolina today to the memorial for our little sister Kanaya, and we had a very prosperous meeting with Brother Mikael and Sister Lauren's family, all of their extended family that came down. They were very hospitable to us, coming down there to partake and do our part in that. So we thank them for showing us the hospitality while we were there. Luke chapter 23, and let's start that at verse 18.
And they cried out all at once, saying, Away with this man, and release unto us Barabbas, who for a certain sedition made in the city, and for murder was cast into prison. Pilate therefore, willing to release Yahshua, spake again to them. But they cried, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. And he said unto them the third time, Why, what evil has he done? I have found no cause of death in him. I will therefore chastise him and let him go.
Now, the first thing we have to do is realize a whole lot of people think that if Christ was here right now, that people would welcome him with open arms, because you hear so many people, of course, using their little term of Lord, that they believe that they would truly embrace him. And when we deal with the doctrine of the Mashiach, this same thing would happen today. These are our people saying, crucify him. And if he showed up in the flesh today, speaking the doctrine that is written on these pages, the very same thing would happen. Go ahead.
And they were instant with loud voices, requiring that he might be crucified. And the voices of them and of the chief priests prevailed. And Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they required. And he released unto them him that for sedition and murder was cast into prison.
The same thing that we do today. We welcome with open arms the people that make violent merchandise of us. And then the ones who speak the truth, we have the most indignation against those people. Go ahead.
Whom they had desired, but he delivered Yahshua to their will. And as they led him away, they laid hold upon one Simeon, a Cyrenian, accompanying out of the country, and on him they laid the cross, that he might bear it after Yahshua. And there followed him a great company of people, and of women, which also bewailed and lamented him. But Yahshua turning unto them said, Daughters of Jerusalem, weep not for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children.
And we got a question online about this. Why would Yahshua tell them to, not weep for him? I understand. Even though there are these things that are about to come upon Yahshua, Yahshua understands the things that are coming about toward him. Yahshua also understands that his Father has the power to stop those things. But if he does not do those things, Israel will not be put in the right place with Elohim that we're supposed to be in. So while we're weeping for what we're witnessing at that moment, we are forgetting what the ultimate purpose is. Then you have to get to the next step of that. That explains the weep not for me. The next step is weep for yourselves and for your children. They don't understand the heavy weight that is about to come upon Jerusalem, that these invading armies are about to show up, in great force. Because after this thing is done, now the gospel has to be spread all over the world. So what Yahweh does, he's not going to just sit here and ask everybody to go. See, what he's going to do is create a necessity. So here it is. He says this gospel must be preached unto all the world. So do you think people, they're just going to volunteer? All right, well, I go to Greece and you go to Spain and then you go over here. No, here comes persecution and everybody flee. That's how he spreads the gospel all over the world. Because you are about to be all over the world, and the word is going to follow you. Go ahead.
Luke chapter 23, in verse 29. For behold, the days are coming, in the which they shall say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bear, and the paps which never gave suck.
Right, because at this point, this persecution is going to be so heavy upon the children of Israel that it's not going to be a prosperous time of having children. And you have to consider this thing flows even up till now. The joy that people should have had in bringing forth children, that joy was seriously taken away during the times of slavery. You're talking about having a child knowing that, as soon as that child is finished being, breastfed, they finna come and take that child from you. That severely lowers your joy of having this child, knowing that it's about to be pulled away and immediately go into servitude. Go ahead.
Then shall they begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if they do these things in a green tree, what shall be done in the dry?
All right, let's go to Matthew chapter 26. Matthew chapter 26, and let's start that at verse 36.
Matthew chapter 26 and verse 36. Then comes Yahshua with them onto a place called Gethsemane, and says unto the disciples, Sit you here, while I go and pray yonder. And he took with him Cephas and the two sons of Zebedee, and began to be sorrowful and very heavy. Then says he unto them, My soul is exceeding sorrowful, even unto death. Tarry you here, and watch with me. And he went a little further, and fell on his face, and prayed, saying, O my Father, if it be possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not as I will, but as you will.
Right. If it's possible, let this cup pass from me. There's a thing of immediate death. And then there's this situation that he's going to have to face. It's not just death. He's got to deal with the torture part of how they're going to string this thing out. This is what the Romans do to make an example out of the people that they are torturing. The whole part of leaving them hanging is the same thing they did here in these Americas. When they hung a slave, they left the slave sitting there. They didn't take him down. That was to be a service of a reminder to anybody else who would dare be disobedient. Go ahead.
And he comes on to the disciples and finds them asleep, and says unto Cephas, What, could you not watch with me 1 hour? Watch and pray, that you enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. He went away again the second time and prayed, saying, O my Father, if this cup may not pass away from me, except I drink it, thy will be done. And he came and found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy. And he left them, and went away again, and prayed the third time, saying the same words. Then cometh he to his disciples, and says unto them, Sleep on now, and take your rest. Behold, the hour is at hand, and the Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. Behold, he is at hand that does betray me.
He is at hand that does betray me. He knows who the betrayer is, but he also understands that this is something that must be done because a suitable body was found for the spirit of Israel to enter into this body and be sacrificed for the children of Israel. From the beginning of Adam's sin, this had to be accomplished. Animal sacrifice was only the schoolmaster, the substitute that was to get us to the Mashiach. From the beginning, it was a man that sinned, and from the beginning, it had to be a man that had to die. So it was always this thing. So if you go back to these other societies and you see that they were doing live child sacrifice, you understand where they were getting this from. The problem is these things are being done out of order. Consider what Yahweh ended up telling Abraham. Go and sacrifice your son. Why would that be an okay subject to even have? Because those people were still around there doing it. It wasn't like this was a far off thing. Because consider, he says, go and sacrifice your son. Abraham went to do it. Why was he okay with that? So they thinking that their sacrifice is going to serve a purpose. Yahweh is already putting this thing in order that even the sacrifice of your own child, even though that may be a young child without sin, it is not going to cover the sins of all of Israel. You don't have the ability to do that. But that didn't stop people from dealing with it. Go ahead.
Verse 47. And while he yet spake, lo, Yehudis, one of the 12, came, and with him a great multitude, with swords and staves, from the chief priests and elders of the people. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, Whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he. Hold them fast. And forthwith he came to Yahshua, and said, Hail, Master, and kissed him.
Right. A shalom don't mean the same for everybody. Some people are shalom you and they just shining at night, right? And they sharpen it as they shalom you. Kissing. And that's the sign. This is the one you need to kill right here. I'm going to be real affectionate to that one. That's the one I need you to kill. Go ahead.
And Yahshua said unto him, Friend, wherefore are you come? Then came they and laid hands on Yahshua and took him. And behold, one of them which were with Yahshua stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. Then said Yahshua unto him, Put up again your sword into his place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Thinketh you that I cannot now pray to my Father, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of angels?
This is helps back up the whole statement. Weep not for me, weep for your children. I'm not without backup. If I wanted to, I could call upon all of this help. The problem is, what does that mean for you if I do it? See, there's these things that we may have the power to do, but do you think about how is it going to affect everything else that is being done around you? Will you do something just because you have the power to do it? He had the power to do that. I can call upon this help right now, and it'll take care of everybody that's sitting here loading up against us. And they can all be dead in an instant. And that might serve your purpose for right now. But after that, you're still going to be in this situation where you are not redeemed unto your Elohim. You have not been placed in that spot that you're supposed to be in. But we can serve the purpose for right now. But what happens after right now? Go ahead.
But how then shall the scriptures be fulfilled?
Right. How then shall the scriptures be fulfilled? If I fulfill my own flesh right now, show you my power, show you what I mean to my Father, I exercise all that power. What does that mean for you? I can do it. But what happens if I do? Go ahead.
That thus it must be.
All right, did you finish that?
Yes.
All right, let's go to Yohanan, John chapter 4. Start this at verse 1, and we're going to work our way back to where we're supposed to be.
Yohanan chapter 4 and verse 1. When therefore the Adonai knew how the Pharisees had heard that Yahshua made and baptized more disciples than Yohanan, though Yahshua himself baptized not, but his disciples.
Now, you know that there are teachings that are out on the internet that they don't believe in baptism, and these people read verse 2 and they stop right at the first comma. They say, though Yahshua himself baptized not. You see? Yahshua didn't baptize. Now, you would think that, man, this is supposed to be a bunch of people that's got all these titles and names. They got colonels and sergeants and all kind of purple rank. Some, they got all of these things. But how do you fall for though Yahshua baptized not? And then right after the comma, it says, but his disciples. So his disciples did the baptisms in his name. Yet you have an organization that has been spread to every city in America, and not one of them are baptized. And they misappropriate this word. And every time you turn around, they're the same ones that's on everybody's website and got something to say. Hey man, take your head, cover it off. Don't understand what a priest is, what a priest does, but what else do you expect from a bunch of spiritual fetuses? Because they ain't been born yet. This is the part where the spiritual birth happens. So you got a spiritual fetus for a colonel. This is who leading your army of fetus. But they leading other fetuses. So I guess that's fitting. Every daycare should have a leader, So because this is milk. This is not meat. This should be very simple to understand. Yahshua made and baptized more disciples than Yohanan. The first verse should have took care of that. Okay? You shouldn't even need the second verse, or the second verse should not be able to persuade you off the first one. This is what happens when people listen more to what the person is saying and throw out what they just read. So what happens is people will read the book and the book says this color is blue, and then the person says, no, this is red. So now, even though the book says it's blue, you keep listening to the person. It's no, that's red. Go ahead, brother.
You know, a lot of people do that. When you talk to people, and they always like to say, well, my pastor said, my pastor said.
Right. But that's the easy way out, my pastor said. Because if you can deal with it in that manner, then you really don't have to do any work. See? And then we believe that we're protected that way and said, well, that's what my pastor said. He said such and such. So we must be protected because he said it. God will understand. But right when somebody says something and the very next verse contradicts that, that's the point where you have to ask a question. And I'm not telling people that they, have to, embarrass somebody, where they go. But hey, it should have been a line standing up at his door. Hey man, when you're done, I'd like to ask you a question about verse 2. Because you said, Christ didn't baptize, so that's why none of us are baptized. But this says, but his disciples did. And his disciples worked for him. So, I like for you to explain that. I mean, they probably still throw you out. But that's not the point. That's not the point. There are certain times that's the best thing for you. Think about it. You ask them that question and they throw you out. Do you realize you just got your salvation because they threw you out? Your salvation is actually damned if you'd have stayed there. So you worrying about getting kicked out, and that's what you're supposed to be doing, getting kicked out. Because if they sitting here teaching you against baptism, why would you want to be there? Go ahead, brother.
But when you look at that whole thing where they stop at, it's boxed in above and below.
It sure is.
It says the Pharisees heard that Yahshua made and baptized more disciples than Yohanan.
That should have took care of it.
It's above and beneath.
How do you get past that? See? That means you have to just decide, I am going to negate what I read. I'm going to negate what it says here, and I'm just going to hold at a higher value the words that's coming out of this man's mouth. The words that are coming out of the teacher's mouth should help edify what's in the book, not take away from it. Go ahead.
Verse 3. He left Judea and departed again into Galilee, and he must needs go through Samaria. Then cometh he to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near to the parcel of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. Now Jacob's well was there. Yahshua therefore, being wearied with his journey, sat thus on the well, and it was about the 6th hour. There comes a woman of Samaria to draw water. Yahshua says unto her, Give me to drink.
All right, jump to verse 19.
The woman says unto him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped in this mountain, and you say that in Jerusalem is the place where men ought to worship.
Understand, Israel was split into two nations. You have the northern kingdom, you have the southern kingdom, and Yahshua is setting forth where the power of this gospel is. Go ahead.
Yahshua says unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour comes when you shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father.
Right. There comes, woman, believe me, the hour comes when you shall neither in this mountain nor yet at Jerusalem worship the Father. Because he know what is about to come down. This is why he says, hey, don't weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children. Y'all hold all of this so important. Y'all not finna be worshiping here. Yet we still get people every couple weeks, come to the YouTube page. Y'all don't speak Hebrew. They don't understand what's going on. Woman, believe me, and the same ones will tell you, the testimony of Christ is the spirit of prophecy. Here goes some prophecy right here. You gonna get kicked out of here and spread all across the globe. So how the whole world gonna hear the word if it has to be in Hebrew for you to hear it? This is that thing. The same one that created the language of Hebrew, he created all the other ones too. It was him that divided the languages, right? He was the one that said, no, I don't want everybody speaking the same language. Because see, when y'all get together, y'all do some strange stuff. So here, y'all divide. So why would Yahweh create a language, then say the gospel cannot be spoken in that language? Yet he says this gospel has to be preached into all the world so that they can have righteous judgment. So think about it. If everybody has to speak Hebrew to be able to hear the word, that means all these people are released from judgment. Because all they got to say on their court date, I don't speak Hebrew. I'm straight. I'm straight. Can I go now? Because that fire's hot. I can feel it from here. Mm-hmm. That's all they got to say. I don't speak Hebrew. Time me to go. There's something wrong with that judgment. That judgment could not be righteous. How can he then hold you responsible for something that you couldn't understand? If I brought a Spanish man in here and just had him talk to y'all and let him talk to y'all for 30 minutes and then passed out a test, and every one of y'all that don't pass that test gonna die, how righteous would that judgment be? You'll just be looking at me. We don't understand what he's saying. How can he hold you responsible for that? So he makes sure that that gospel is easy to be understood in the language you speak. My elder used to say all the time, when people say, hey brother, do you speak Hebrew? He said, say do not steal in Hebrew. Okay, now say it in English. Okay, now tell me what it means. It meant the same thing in Hebrew that it meant in English. Don't take stuff that don't belong to you. It's amazing watching MMA fights. You see people that are paired up that do not understand one another. They have absolutely no way of communicating if there's not an interpreter. One of them may be Russian, or one of them may speak English. The other one is from South America. They do not understand anything. But there's a universal language of kick butticus. And the dude may not speak that language, but he know when he got whooped. He know when he lost. Nobody has to translate. Well, he el kiki yo telio. That's why your eye hanging out your face yo. No, nobody has to say that. He knows that. It is universal understanding. I didn't win that fight. Nobody has to interpret that. See? You don't need an interpreter. So when Yahweh come take care of his business, believe you me, everybody gonna understand when tail get kickiest. Go ahead, bro.
Verse 22. You worship you know not what. We know what we worship, for salvation is of the Yehudis.
Salvation is of the Yehudim, of the Jews, so-called. Go ahead.
But the hour comes, and now is when the true worshipers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeks such to worship him. Elohim is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth.
And to do that, you have to deal with the righteousness of the law, not the letter of the law, the righteousness of the law. If you're going to worship Elohim in spirit and in truth, that means we can't do it as we want to do it. That means we can't deal with Herman and his nudix. We can't go and say, well, this is what the word means to me in my era, in my time. I think no pork was when they, didn't have refrigerators. That's what it means to me. All right, we're going to see what fire means to you. And we're going to see if the meaning of fire changes because you're there. Go ahead.
The woman says unto him, I know that the Mashiach comes, which is called the Anointed One. When he is come, he will tell us all things.
All right.
Yahshua says unto her, I that speak unto you am he.
All right, let's go to Matthew chapter 24. Matthew chapter 24, and we're going to read verses 1 through 28.
Verse 1. And Yahshua went out and departed from the temple. And his disciples came to him for to show him the buildings of the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And Yahshua said unto them, See you not all these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
Right. See, some people cannot move on to the next stage as long as the building is still standing. There are some people that are not able to realize when the spirit has left a place. As long as the place is physically standing, they will continue to go. So Yahweh's like, no. I'm going to have to do something to make sure that y'all know this is not going to be the place where you're going to worship. I am about to spread you everywhere. And this place that you hold dear, it is going to be gone. Go ahead.
And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of your coming and of the end of the world? And Yahshua answered and said unto them, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Mashiach, and shall deceive many.
Right. And today they won't be as bold to say that I am the Mashiach. What they'll do is do it in a more covert manner. I talked to God last night. God told everybody everything. Everything that somebody want to do on their flesh, God told me to do it. Really? He didn't tell you to read that book either. He didn't tell you to read that though. But he came with a special message for you. And he just talked to you only. And it had nothing to do with anybody else. Not your nation of people who are suffering as a whole. He said absolutely nothing about those people. Just you and your house. That's the only one he was concerned about. Just you. And his name was God too, right? He didn't have no name. Right. Go ahead.
And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet.
Right. All of the turmoil that's going back and forth between these nations, they have to happen. They have to take place because the children of Israel have to be redeemed. The children of Israel, the ultimate part of salvation for Israel is being in Israel. But not being in Israel by yourself. You just going and taking a trip to Israel is not you getting your salvation. You're a tourist. Yahweh didn't have the tourist salvation. No. Go ahead.
For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places.
Mm-hmm.
All these are the beginning of sorrows.
This is just the beginning of sorrows. Go ahead.
Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you, and you shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake.
Right, as it is to this very day. If you go to a lot of these other countries where our people have been scattered, they have the same problems with the police that we have. We think that is something that's an American problem. No, it's not. The people who hate us know that, hey, all I have to do is become a policeman and I get to shoot them and not go to jail. That's all I got to do. Because they know I'm not going to get punished if I become an officer of the law and I do something to them. Go ahead.
And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. And many false prophets shall rise, and shall deceive many. And because lawlessness shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold.
And the interesting part about that is, while at the same time the love of many is growing cold, people are using the term love more and more. The very people who are enveloped in lawlessness are the ones who constantly tell you that they love you. Talk to one of your little heathen family members. Watch how many times they tell you they love you. They start off the conversation. Hey, child, I love you. Look here, where you going to go at? Oh, I love you. Look, and tomorrow we're going to go down there. I tell you I love you. You want to have a nice little interesting day? Pause it for a second and just ask, so what does love mean to you? What does love mean to you? Because they have no problem throwing around, I love you. They'll tell you in a minute. But what does that mean to you? And without having some form of understanding of this book, I can tell you that that whole thing of love is not understood at all. People claim they love somebody. Next thing you know, they're throwing a plate at them. Folks say they love you. Next thing you know, they're saying some god-awful stuff out of their mouth. Folks say they love you. Then they making all kind of crazy accusations against you 2 seconds later. Something wrong with your love. We need to get together and figure out what is the basis for this love that you have. What is it based upon? Because some people's love is based on you doing whatever they ask. And they love you as long as you do whatsoever they ask you. And as soon as you are not able or will not do whatever that is, you know, my love for you is declining. Oh, interesting. Go ahead, bro.
Verse 13. But he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world.
I'm sorry, where it's going to be preached at?
All the world.
You said all of Jerusalem?
No, all the world.
No, all of Israel. No, because remember now, you got to know Hebrew to be able to understand the word. So surely, this must be a typo. And the gospel of the kingdom. Now hold on. The testimony of Yahshua is the spirit of prophecy, right? Mm-hmm. That's what the purple people say. Now, and then right here, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the, what you got?
World.
But how they gonna preach that in all the world and speaking only Hebrew?
Seems to be a problem with your Hebrew.
See, so either Yahshua lying, or we got a lot of other lying so-called Israelites. This misconception not coming from Christians. No, this coming from people who say they're Hebrew. You ain't seen no Christian run up on you and say you got to know Hebrew. Now, Christians don't do that. No, those are Hebrews telling that lie. So that's one thing when you got kids, you learn which ones will do certain things. You begin to listen to doctrine and you can tell where that lie came from. So no, that's a purple lie right there. That's a purple. I can tell the way that lie came out. That lie's purple. Go ahead.
Not only does it say for all the world, it says for a witness unto all nations. So all the nations got to learn Hebrew?
All the nations got to speak the same language. So then Yahweh now has to reverse what he did at the Tower of Babel, so that all the nations can hear the word in the same language. And it's got to be true, because that's what the purple guy said. And he wouldn't lie because he had on fringes. The fringes remind him to keep the law. So he wouldn't dare break it while wearing the fringes, would he? Read, man.
And then shall the end come. When you therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso reads, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house.
Right.
Neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes.
Right. And Brother Kalen and Eliel, they whole family did a documentary that's really nice. I watched it the other night. What was it called? The Rapture? What was the name of the documentary? Why are you looking at me like you don't know what I'm talking about, bro? Wrong with you, man? I need to ask Kalen. Kalen! Your daddy looking confused out here.
I don't know what the title is.
He's looking at me. What's the name of it? Rapture. Somebody else got to tell me what y'all... They got a family documentary, all of them in it. It sounds like 4 different nations. It's 4 different Jamaican accents in there. Athalia coming in. Well, and you always said. Then CC come in. I was like, she sounds like a totally different Jamaican. I was like, they just sound like they just grabbed 4 people from different parts of the island. Yeah, but it's absolutely nice. They did a wonderful job with it. I'm sure all the people all over the island would be pleased with it. Go ahead, bro.
Verse 19.
Oh yeah, Elijah was in. They did have one American. They had one American. They had that Elijah was in there. They had you sprinkle a little bit of American in there. You know what I'm saying? They had one American in there. I forgot, bro. Well, all the Jamaicans, I lost you. I'm sorry. My bad. Go ahead, man.
And woe unto them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. But pray.
Remember what he said? Don't wait for me. Wait for your children. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to go through all of this stuff. Go ahead.
But pray you that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day.
Well, they said we ain't got to worry about the Sabbath no more. That's for the Hebrews. We don't have to worry about that. He's talking about future events, and he's still talking about the Sabbath. So why everybody going to church on Sunday? Go ahead.
For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor ever shall be. Mm-hmm. And except those days shall be shortened, there should no flesh be saved.
Except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. It is going to be a troublesome time. This is why you have the doctrine, we're going to have to float up. Because I don't see us being able to make this right here. We're going to have to be raptured up. Because there's going to be some terrible stuff on here. And it's going to be hard to love. It's going to be hard to love during this time. So I say we just float up, look at all this destruction. And when it's done, we'll come back down. Okay? All right? Float on 3. 1, 2, 3. Float. All right. Go ahead.
But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lo, here is the Mashiach, or there, believe it not. For there shall arise false messiahs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, insomuch that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect.
Right. When they get to making those signs in the sky and can show anything, it's going to really persuade some people to do some things, because they're going to swear that they're seeing, something that is supposed to make them move a certain way, and they're going to react to it. Go ahead.
Behold, I have told you before. Wherefore, if they shall say unto you, Behold, he is in the desert, go not forth. Behold, he is in the secret chambers, believe it not. For as the lightning comes out of the east, and shineth even unto the west, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
Right. So when they tell you that Christ appeared in Nebraska, don't waste your time. He's got to come from the east and then to the west. So if he don't show up in Jerusalem first, When they say, hey, we just seen Christ. He in the hills. Let's go. Is that the first place y'all saw him? Yeah, well, miss me with that trip. Because that can't be where he gonna show up. Because see, my book says something otherwise. My book said he gonna show up where he left from. But see, if you don't know enough of the word, then you don't know when somebody's lying to you. Because a lot of times what we do, we judge the truth by how much zeal somebody tell a lie. So if they say that lie with conviction, look, he believe it in his heart. No, he's just a good liar. Go ahead.
For wheresoever the carcass is, there will the eagles be gathered together.
Right, because they gathered there to eat the decaying flesh. Let's go to Yohanan chapter 11. And this is the last one that we're going to do for tonight. We're not going to hold y'all long. And Elder Barack woke up, y'all. He made it in. But he drove today. He drove, there and back. But you ain't got no alarm clock on that phone, brother? That thing don't wake you up? All right. Cause mine got a little beep on it. You know what I'm saying? I turn it on, the little beep wake me up. I'm just saying, though. Yohanan chapter 11, and let's start that at verse 1.
Now a certain man was sick, named Lazarus, of Bethany, the town of Miriam and her sister Martha. It was that Miriam which anointed the Adonai with ointment, and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. Therefore his sisters sent unto him, saying, Adonai, behold, he whom you loveth is sick. When Yahshua heard that, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of Elohim, that the Son of Elohim might be glorified thereby.
Right. So you have to remember this statement, because there's a point where we ended up getting a question like, why was he crying for Lazarus? Understand what is being said from the beginning. This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of Elohim. There are certain things that will take place, not because anybody has done something wrong, not because of any particular thing, but when he does what he does, the glory is going to be given unto Yahweh. Go ahead.
Now Yahshua loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. When he had heard therefore that he was sick, he abode 2 days still in the same place where he was.
So, some people had indignation right there. Here come the flesh. If you had just left when I told you, he'd be alive right now. But you took your time. The mules are slow. Go ahead.
Then after that says he to his disciples, Let us go into Judea again. His disciples say unto him, Master, the Yehudis of late sought to stone you, and goeth you thither again? Yahshua answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If any man walk in the day, he stumbles not, because he sees the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbles, because there is no light in him. These things said he, and after that he says unto them, Our friend Lazarus sleeps, but I go that I may awake him out of sleep.
Right, which is what death is. It is sleep. People have all of these things to try to explain what it is. They may be asleep 1,000 years. The day that they wake up, it's going to be like yesterday. Go ahead.
Then said his disciples, Adonai, if he sleeps, he shall do well. Howbeit Yahshua spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking of rest in sleep. Then said Yahshua unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there.
Right. See, now you're starting to understand that what he's dealing with is the lack of faith among the children of Israel. Because there are things that they have witnessed, but they still question him all along the way. Says, I am glad for your sakes that I was not there. Go ahead.
To the intent you may believe. Nevertheless, let us go on to him.
That you may believe. He's dealing with their unbelief. Go ahead.
Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Then when Yahshua came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already.
Right. So this is also something that you can tell that they don't quite understand. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. See, he don't really, he lacketh understanding. But Yahshua taught his disciples and chastised them all the time. We get a little bit of chastisement and we're about to die. You read this book. He will do it to them in a minute. Because that brings about spiritual growth. He didn't just turn around and say a whole bunch of niceties to them. He pushed them so that they would grow in the word. Go ahead.
Now Bethany was near unto Jerusalem, about 15 furlongs off. And many of the Yehudis came to Martha and Miriam to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Yahshua was coming, went and met him, but Miriam sat still in the house. Then said Martha unto Yahshua, Adonai, if you had been here, my brother had not died.
Right, you sat there them 2 days. I know you got my message. I know you got it. But then you just gonna sit there. If you had been here, this wouldn't have happened. Death wouldn't even come near you.
Go ahead.
But I know that even now, whatsoever you will ask of Elohim, Elohim will give it you.
Right. So there was a little bit of redeeming on the next one. But it was still a little ticked offness in the first statement. But then, you know what I'm saying, we're going to clear it up on the second one, nonetheless. But, straight up, though, you should have been here. Okay? Nobody knows how to, make their point like a woman. This is the gift of a woman right here, how she can go high and then hit you with the low note at the same time, and you confused. Well, what note was that? What the hell? Here she went high. It was a little falsetto, and a little what the hell is going on here? So she went high, but then she brought it back low on this one right here. Go ahead.
Yahshua says unto her, your brother shall rise again. Martha says unto him, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day.
Right. Never believed in death and heaven. This New Testament. I know he is going to rise again in the resurrection, which is a specified time at the last day. I know when we already know according to this word when that's going to happen. So you're not telling me anything that I don't know. I know this part. What are you referring to then? Go ahead.
Yahshua said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Believe you this? She says unto him, Yes, Adonai, I believe that you are the anointed one, the Son of Elohim, which should come into the world. And when she had so said, she went her way.
Okay, I want you to also notice the great power of a woman. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believes in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever lives and believes in me shall never die. Believe you this. Listen to her answer. She says unto him, Yea, Adonai, I believe that you are the Mashiach, the son of Elohim, who should come in this world. You notice she didn't say the other part? He said, and whomsoever lives and believe in me shall never die. Do you believe it?
Yeah, I believe you the son of Elohim.
but he shall never die. Believe you this? You can learn how she answered these questions. A lot of people don't know how to answer questions. You're like, look here, you want me to answer that next one? You're going to answer another question. So yeah, I believe you the son of Elohim. The other part's a little foggy. I don't know how to take that right now. And I don't want to be, a non-believer at the same time. So we're gonna approach this right here with a little caution. That's how we're gonna do this. We're gonna approach this right here with a little caution. You want me to answer that? You're gonna answer another question. Believe that? Go ahead.
And when she had so said, she went her way, and called Miriam her sister secretly, saying, The master is come, and calls for you. As soon as she heard that, she arose quickly, and came on to him. Now Yahshua was not yet come into the town, but was in that place where Martha met him. The Yehudis then which were with her in the house, and comforted her, when they saw Miriam, that she rose up hastily, and went out, followed her, saying, She goes on to the grave to weep there. Then when Miriam was come where Yahshua was, and saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying unto him, Adonai, if you had been here, my brother had not died.
Here we go again. Here we go again. You needed to be here, and had you not just sat there for them 2 days, I thought you said he was your friend. You said you loved him. So he's dealing with their unbelief. You think I gotta physically be here to do something for you? You think that if I was here, that's the only way that this could be done? Go ahead.
When Yahshua therefore saw her weeping, and the Yehudis also weeping which came with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled.
He groaned in the spirit. So what the question that people ask, why was he crying for Lazarus? Now you got to watch all the other stuff that's going on. Remember in the beginning, he had already said, Lazarus ain't dead. Now, this has just happened that Elohim might get some glory. Come on. And I'm glad I wasn't there. Now, he glad he wasn't there. Look at what they saying. Everybody keep telling him,
If you had been here, this wouldn't have happened.
Yahshua saying, I'm glad I wasn't there.
If you had been here, it wouldn't have happened.
I'm glad I wasn't there. Wait a minute. Those are two opposing views. They thinking for one thing, he's thinking for something totally different. Go ahead.
And said, Where have you laid him? They said unto him, Adonai, come and see. Yahshua wept.
Yeah, that's the one they tell you, quote a Bible verse.
Yahshua wept. I remember that. That's my favorite one. I remember that whole verse from start to finish. Yahshua wept. Yes.
Right. So was the question, was he weeping for Lazarus? Think about what he's weeping for. Look at, these are some of the most loyal people that are there, and their belief still needs strengthening. They think that he would have had to be there physically to be able to keep this from happening. And these are the most loyal. So if the most loyal believe that, what do the other ones believe? Where is their belief? They suppose they know why he's crying. Go ahead.
The thing about it is, whether he was there or not, it still wasn't going to be good if he had let him die. Because if he had been there and he died, how would you let him die?
Oh, it was going to be.
I thought you told me you was Christ. I thought you told me you was the son of Elohim. And why my brother dead? I'm going to tell y'all wait on you.
We're going to go spiritual snitch. Go ahead, brother.
Then said the Yehudis, Behold how he loved him. And some of them said, Could not this man, which opened the eyes of the blind, have caused that even this man should not have died?
Now, how many times? Okay. He says one thing, I'm glad I wasn't there. Everybody else, look at this. Look at that. I thought he was supposed to be son of Elohim. And there's confusion as to why he wept. They think he's weeping over Lazarus. That's what you hear over and over and over. Look at all the other things that are going on. Look how many, first of all, Yeshua is receiving accusations at this point. Understand, they might come out nice, but these are basically accusations. This wouldn't happen if you was here. You didn't move fast enough. Couldn't you have caused this not to happen? Go ahead.
Yahshua therefore again groaning in himself comes to the grave. It was a cave, and a stone lay upon it.
Yahshua therefore again groaning in himself. Go ahead.
Yahshua said, take you away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, says unto him, Adonai, by this time he stinks, for he has been dead 4 days. Yahshua says unto her, said I not unto you, that if you would believe, you should see the glory of Elohim? Then they took away the stone from the place where the dead was laid. And Yahshua lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. And I knew that you heareth me always. But because of the people which stand by, I said it, that they may believe that you have sent me. And when he thus had spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Yahshua says unto them, loose him and let him go.
Right. And if you do some research on those things, you'll find that during the time that these other gospels were written, that they left out the writing about Lazarus, and you will go back and read that some wanted to go and kill him again. You find that it was certain things that they had to write about him later, because to take away the glory of Yahshua, remember what they said, look, make sure that they don't speak about this man anymore. We need to take away all of the things. So understand what they wanted to do. They wanted to go kill the people, because it's not like this man has a new body, okay? He has a resurrection, but it's not the resurrection that Christ had. It's not that body. So that body can die again. To erase the power and the gift of Yahshua, they would have killed the man again. Say like, hey, let's not. We don't need to write about that right now. Because if so, he gonna die. So, hopefully that answers some questions that that was lingering on a few things. But that is all that we're gonna do for tonight. Enjoy your new moon. Shalom.
Shalom.